היי, אהלן, מה נשמע?
הבת שלי צורחת בבדיקה, אז לצערי אני לא...
רגע, אני לא שומע. את שומעת אותי? רגע.
לוודא שהכל בסדר מבחינה טכנית, ולסלק לי, כי הבת שלי צורחת, זה זמן ההשקעה.
אוקיי.
לראות שהכל...
את שומעת אותי? אוקיי, מצוין. ראה אותי, הכל בסדר. אוקיי, מצוין.
טוב.
מתחילים להגיע אנשים?
אתה רוצה שננסה לראות שהמצגת עובדת, או שאתה חושב שהיא עובדת?
אמור לעבוד, אבל רגע, נראה. עשית לי co-host?
אני אעשה לך. כן, נכון?
כן, אוקיי, בוא נראה.
איך הלב?
מה זה?
איך הלב?
כן, כן, ברוך השם, הכל בסדר. תודה. כן, עובד טוב. אה, אני רק מסתכל פה, מה שאני לא רואה זה הספוטלייט. את רואה את זה?
בדרך כלל זה more.
כן, אני ראיתי את זה, אבל זה לא פה. בדרך כלל זה פה.
זה מופיע אחרי שתשתף מסך. תשתף את השאר, לדעתי, ואז זה יופיע. ברגע שיש לך
כן, אז רגע.
share screen, כן.
לא, אני לא רואה את זה.
יש לי 14 אנשים ב-waiting room.
יופי. את אמרת שיש 60 פלוס, נכון?
נרשמו 60, בדרך כלל מגיעים שליש.
אוקיי.
להכניס אותם?
כן, אפשר. אני רק פשוט לא יודע למה אין... כי אני לא עושה share, האמת, אני עושה ספוטלייט.
של המצגת איתי, רק נראה שזה עובד. אני חושבת שזה יהיה בסדר. אבל בוא
אז
נראה.
יש לי פה, כי יש לי פה את כל הסליידס, את רואה? אבל למה זה עכשיו עושה ככה? אני רוצה לעשות ככה. עכשיו,
שעשית share?
עכשיו זה לא share, אבל זה אמור להיות בספוטלייט, ואני לא יודע למה אין לי ספוטלייט יש לך ספוטלייט?
לא, רק למי שעושה share יש.
לא, 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 זה בלי share, אין קשר. כן, תסתכלי אם יש לך ספוטלייט.
לא, זה... זה לא נמצא תחת host tools.
רגע,
יש
יכול
לי
להיות?
ככה
כן, יכול
share,
להיות. כן, יכול להיות.
share, אני לא רואה.
מעניין. בדרך כלל זה שם. יש לך את זה? בדרך כלל יש לך?
בדרך כלל אין לי אופציה, רק כשאני עושה share נפתח סרגל. לא סרגל שיש, שאתה רואה עכשיו, זה סרגל אחר שנמצא על המסך.
איזה סוג של זום יש לכם?
זה רגיל.
זה הפרו?
אני חושבת שכן.
אוקיי, את רואה את המצגת שלי?
כן, כן, הכל בסדר.
אוקיי, ואת רואה אותי פה עכשיו ככה?
אני רואה מצוין.
אוקיי, אז רגע, גם את זה נראה. אוקיי, בסדר גמור.
יופי, אז אני אכניס אותם, יש
כן,
15
כן,
אנשים.
כן, כן, תכניסי אותה.
בסדר, מעולה.
Okay, מצוין.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to have you here. Welcome to our webinar. I hope that everybody can hear us and see well the presentation in a second. So I will shortly give the floor to our host. I'm just letting the latecomers in. Okay, so thank you again for joining us. Without further ado, I will give the floor to Dr. Dov Ben-Yaakov-Kurtzman, who was kind enough to talk to us today.
Okay, hello and good evening to everybody. And thank you for coming along. Maybe just for me and for everyone here, just to kind of understand who's here. Maybe you can put in the chat where you're coming in from. Hi to Tomer as well. And where are you? Where are you watching this from? Just stick that in the chat, and we'll kind of get ourselves kind of going. If you can keep your cameras open, that would be great. Just makes it more of a group kind of thing. That would be lovely. So let me just see what we got here. So Herzliya in Israel, wonderful. London, Vienna, nice. Connecticut in the USA, wow. Good afternoon to you. Kent in the UK, beautiful place. All right. We've got Rosalind in London, so welcome to you. Austria, and at the moment in LA. Okay, just north of Los Angeles. Okay, your hair's in a shower cap. We don't mind here. You're welcome to have it on or off. And Renee, they're from Chicago. Very nice. Okay, wonderful. We've got Montreal also. Fantastic. There you go. Excellent. Well done. I love the bravery. Great, Judy. Okay, so we are here to discuss, if you like, or to hear a little bit about what we can do when we incur anti-Semitism online and how it can affect us. Maybe if anyone's been affected here, it would also be good just to throw quickly into the chat anything that you've experienced yourself or know of anyone else that's experienced anything unpleasant when surfing or even on social media. Or just surfing on the internet in general, whether it's news sites or whether it's other kind of sites. What have you come across? What have you experienced? Why did you even come here? I would imagine that you're here for a particular interest in this. And so what has brought you here? What are we experiencing online? Just while we're waiting on some latecomers coming in. So what have you got there? What have you experienced? What's brought you here to this meeting?
Great example would be David Miller and all the stuff which he is putting out, particularly on Twitter. I'm involved with some anti-radicalisation, anti-extremism groups in the UK, and the number of conspiracy theories, nasty theories which get put out there, which have been going for many years. Enormous quantities, some of them absolutely vile.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Lawrence. I'm seeing here also from Judy, deeply affected, was in a group trying to combat anti-Semitism. Yeah, became very anxious by the amount of Jew hate. Let me ask you, Lawrence, how did that affect you personally?
I think the big effect I had was about 7 years ago. I lived near where the block of flats where there was a big fire, and I was representing the Jewish community in the public meetings. And public meeting, I got hit with a wave of the juice caused the fire.
Right.
And I've been to experience, I've got myself involved in extremism and radicalization since then. I've experienced a hell of a lot of things since then.
Very unpleasant, I would imagine. And a lot of some people experiencing this also on WhatsApp groups, maybe even professional WhatsApp groups or work. And we start to feel things inside. Okay, so that's what this is about. How do we attend to what we're experiencing in ourselves? So on the outside, we're getting this anti-Semitism and all its guises and forms, whether it's anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism, whether it's anti-Semitism as anti-Semitism, and so on. It has so many different guises, but we actually respond to that. We actually have a reaction inside our brain and body. And that's what I would like to attend to tonight, to give you some skills. I know we don't have a lot of time, but to give you some skills, this would be, I think, very effective for you. So I do want it to be interactive, so you're welcome to ask questions. I won't be able to see the chat as we're going along, so just stick your hand up and or open your mic and ask a question. That would probably be the best thing. The first thing I want to do, though, is thank you for your bravery. It's definitely not easy to come to a thing like this when we start talking about emotions and uncomfortable thoughts. It can bring up past experiences in us. It can bring up somebody said here, anxiety, maybe things that we might be worried about. So the fact that you've come here and wanting to learn, basically, that's it's definitely to be commended. So thank you for that. It's going to be around 45 minutes. And the purpose and aim of this is to give you some skills so that you walk away with something. And it's not just listening to my Scottish accent. Also, I want you to know that the fact and one of the most protective factors dealing with psychological, emotional, mental health, especially under these circumstances, but in all circumstances, is the sense of community, is the sense of being there, sense of support, sense of being part of something. And let me tell you, just being part of this meeting tonight, and that's why I asked specifically if you could keep your cameras open, is because having a situation like tonight when we know there's others with us, even though we're all coming in, sitting in our own rooms, watching a screen, our brains doesn't necessarily know that. And they register that we're here with a little group, and that group settles down our brain. So already just being here, you're actually doing something to help you and to help others. And that's why I asked for your common experiences at the beginning, because the more we share, the more we understand, the more the fact that we are having a little bit of peer-to-peer support here tonight ourselves as well. What I will teach you tonight, I want you to obviously practice it and learn it and be with it, but also to pass it on. Don't just keep it all to yourself. So if you find something interesting, then you can always pass it on to people that you love or know, or your neighbors, or whatever it is that you know that might be beneficial for that. So participation is welcome, and you're welcome to talk to me at any time. My name is Dov Ben Yaakov Kurtzman, and I've got a number. You can, if you want, photograph the screen if it's really important to you. And I've got a number of degrees in social work, clinical social work, psychology. My postgraduate work was in psychiatry. And I'm the founder and CEO of a number of mental health organizations, and work both in Israel and in the UK. And my private clinic is worldwide when I do one-to-one sessions. All right, enough about me. So, just a minute, get back to me again. So, what can reduce, first of all, the impact of traumatic events. Now, trauma is sometimes used in a colloquial sense. And so, oh, I've had a traumatic day yesterday, and so on. And so we're going to define trauma uh, ourselves, especially for this meeting. But I want us to understand that there's a few factors that can give us inner resources, give us what we call resilience, which means that we can actually go through something and bounce back at the other side. So a number of these things are available to us already. So for instance, as I mentioned, social support is the number one. So social support is our responsibility actually to create that. So to be part of a group like you've come in tonight or any other groups that you're part of, building relationships with friends and family and neighbors, or maybe at your local synagogue or other clubs. These are really, really important organizations and groups to allow us to have some support. Now, you don't have to be super active. It's not about being active or anything. It's just about being with other people. So people help people. And being in the company of other people is already soothing and important for our brains to understand that we're not alone. Another thing is flexibility, and that means we need to adapt to different situations. And a lot of us can actually become very rigid in our behavior. And when we're rigid in our behavior, and changes happen or something happens, like coming up against something very uncomfortable or horrible in our setting or wherever it is that we've encountered it, if we're very rigid in our behavior, it's going to be very difficult to kind of allow this to happen to us and then bounce back from it. So, developing flexibility, which is a skill in itself, but I'll give you some um, skills that can help with that, is very important. Another thing that's very important, and it comes right deep down into the the essence of well-being of a human being is having meaning and purpose in our life. So whether that's higher meaning and purpose, like some sort of religious meaning and purpose, or whether it's societal, or whether it's a meaning and purpose in just me and how I interact with my family or my friends, or how I am with the world, having something to get up in the morning for and think, okay, this is what I'm all about, is really important. And it's something that we tend not to ask ourselves. So we don't tend to ask ourselves, what really is important to me? A lot of the time in life, we tend to respond to what's happening rather than actually ask and write down what is important to me in this life. And when we have that sense of what's important to me, how do I want to show up in this life? How do I want to behave in this life? This gives us a massive resilience. So the next thing is having some sort of competent confidence. And people say to me, you know, I'm a therapist, so they come, oh, I don't have self confidence and so on. And I explain to them that confidence comes from competence. Um, when we're seeing a 2 year old or a 6 month year old baby kind of learning, a 1.5 year old rather, starting to learn baby steps to start walking, they don't just get up and start running around. They take a step and they fall down, take a step and they fall down. So um, eventually, after they're competent in practicing, they're walking around. So if I was to ask anybody here who even thought for a second that they weren't confident, if I would to ask you, are you confident walking around? Most of us would probably say, unless we had a problem, most of us would say, yeah, of course I feel confident walking. But you didn't always feel confident walking. Do you feel confident putting a fork in your mouth when you're eating dinner? Yeah, of course I do. Do you feel confident when you lift the cup and you have a drink of your coffee or whatever? Yeah, I do. But we didn't always. We had to learn that. And so we learn to be confident by competence. And so these are the things that we need to focus on. So, what is a psychological traumatic event? And I'm going to boil it right down to very simple terms that we use as I am a traumatologist, and we um, react to emergency situations. I was here just after October the 7th in Israel, working in the Dead Sea with the people from Sderot and the kibbutzim, the survivors of the attack, just as I was when I was attending to the Manchester bombing in England and the Grenfell fire in London. A traumatic event we're going to define as a life-threatening or in actuality or perceived to be life-threatening, and plus helplessness, and plus the person doesn't know what to do. If somebody is in a life-threatening situation plus doesn't know what to do, that's what we're defining as a traumatic event. So um, if somebody was in a situation where there was a fire and they felt that their life was in danger, but they didn't know what to do and they start going to some sort of shock, that could become a traumatic event. But if they're a trained fire person and they've been doing fires all their life, a fire might still be a life-threatening event, but they do know what to do, so they don't necessarily go through trauma. Okay? Any questions up until this point? You're welcome to ask. If not, yeah, go on. Hi.
Sarah Cohen from Montreal, Quebec.
Hi.
Hi, thank you. I was thinking of a traumatic event. What if it's more psychological? Like my sister recently went through a very big surgery. I'm happy to say survived. I felt so helpless before it and during it and in the event of her of the torturous pain she was feeling before she finally decided to have it. So is that also a traumatic event when it's sort of personal?
Okay. That's a wonderful question. And the answer is yes. We found out not only can you suffer um, pain and suffering through trauma when it happens to yourself, but also when it happens to somebody that's close to you. And even it can happen if we're watching a news event. So, and this could be very relevant to what we're talking about, is that when we witness things even online, this can we react to it in a way. So what tonight is all about is what do we do and how can it help us not have that helplessness bit of the equation. So if we can have something that we can do, then we've taken that part of the equation off, and therefore we shouldn't, or at least lower risk of having trauma. So just a quick understanding of how the brain works. We're not going to go into all the neuroscience, but just to give you a quick understanding. And that is that there is an emotional stressor. So that could be like Sarah explained to us, or it could be that you came across something very horrific online, or you've had a horrible experience in some sort of social media setting or other online setting. And so when that happens, our emotional side of the brain, we've got something called an amygdala, and that amygdala is like the watchdog, so always looking for danger, always looking for danger. And that kind of goes into action and barks off and says, oh, wait a minute, there's something going on here. And that sends signals to our emotional brain, and our emotional brain goes into hyperactivity. Emotional brain starts to trigger off all the emotions. So there's a fear emotion, something's going on here, and trying to get the whole body ready for being under threat and under attack. When that happens, we have another part of our brain, which is the front part of our brain, which is generally the part of the brain that's always in charge. It's like the CEO of our brain. It's called the prefrontal cortex. It's the thinking part, the logical part, the bit that kind of keeps everything under control. But when the emotional part of the brain takes over, it kind of hijacks the brain and shuts down that thinking part of our brain. So I take it nobody here has ever been angry in their life, but people that have been angry that you might have known, you see that their whole emotions might take over and their thinking side starts to shut down. So it's just as much correct when somebody gets really angry, or a little 3-year-old in a supermarket when they wants a bar of chocolate and mum says no, goes into a tantrum, right? So we call it tantrums. But basically what's happening is the emotional side of the brain is taking over and it can't logically think anymore. So when that happens, there's decreased thinking abilities, right? And there's increased helplessness, because when we don't have that thinking ability, we don't know how to problem solve and work out what we need to do. So we're feeling more helpless. And when we're feeling more helpless, we're perceiving the danger even more than it actually might be. And therefore, we have an additional emotional stressor, and it just goes round again and again and again, and it gets worse until we are shutting down and shutting down. And of course, it depends on what that emotional stressor is. So, if something that's disturbing but not horrific, then we're going to get a small kind of injection of that. But if it's really horrific, and in some cases, if any people saw the videos, for instance, of the 7th of October, these can be really horrific things to see, and it can start to have that effect on us, and we respond in that way, especially if we don't know what else to do. So one of the things that's really important is that we understand that when things like that happen to us, we're going to have a struggle. We're going to have something going on, because at one point we're not going to like it, right? We're not going to like that stuff happening to us. We're not going to like these horrible thoughts we're going to have. We're not going to like the emotional kind of roller coaster that we might go on. And we're certainly not going to like the things that happen in our body because of it. So we don't have a lot of time here to start going into it in detail, but if you can remember when you've ever been emotional in one way or another, we feel it in our bodies generally. So we might feel something in our tummy that gets all kind of in knots, or we might feel something in our chest, or we might even feel some physiological signs like our heartbeat or our breathing changes. So we have that going on, and that's a natural response. And that's one thing that we need to learn, that our body will not ask us, it'll just do it. And if we haven't learned that, that it's a natural response, we can get very concerned about it and think there's something wrong with us. And so, one of the things that we have to learn when it comes to these kind of things is to be willing to let that happen to us. And that's a hard thing, right? Let that happen to us. Because when we get into a fight with our own brain, it's a lose-lose situation, right? Because we can't run away from it. If we have some fire, we can definitely get out the road. If we have somebody coming, outside with someone to throw a stone at us or something, we can run away. But when it's happening inside us, there's nowhere to go. And so it's very important that instead of distracting ourselves and trying to, do other things, one of the things the best way to do it is to understand that I'm having a really difficult emotion happen to me right now. I'm having very horrible thoughts at this moment, and I'm experiencing not very nice things in my body. When we say these things to ourselves, genuinely, we and do what we think is important. So even though we might feel very anxious or very tense about anything that we need to be doing, if it's important for enough, we say that to ourselves. We're willing to experience it, and then we go on and do what matters to us. So whatever it is that we are wanting to do, that might be preventing us from doing. Anyone got any examples of that in their own lives where anxiety might be getting in the way of something important for them, or thoughts might be getting in the way of something that they want to do, but they don't do it because the thoughts are bothering them, or their bodies are bothering them because it's just kind of getting into that tense mode? And is that familiar to anybody here? Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that we can learn to do is what's called self-compassion. Okay. And self compassion is a self soothing exercise. It's very, very effective. And the reason why it's effective is because it can change the biochemistry inside our body. It's not just a woo woo kind of thing, having kindness for ourselves and self compassion, even though the words have that kind of effect on them, but it actually changes the biochemistry inside our body. And for speed, what I've done here is I've given you, if we can see it here, yeah, see that little Q code? If you photograph that Q code, then there is a video behind us explaining exactly how I do this exercise, and you can watch that video. And that exercise is very self-soothing. So I do it all the time, by the way. So even if I'm having to do something that has a difficulty to do it, or it might be a little bit anxious causing to, but I have to do it, then I do this exercise. It's an exercise that we can do anywhere. And if you ever have noticed that if you get a fright or if something is frightening, it's almost an automatic natural thing that you put your hand here on your chest. So this is based on that. So I really suggest that um, you try that exercise out. And I do it, I must say, every day, if not more than every day. Almost doing it now. Huh? So yeah, somebody unmuted. They want to ask something? Okay. So another exercise, it's really important, and I use this as well. And one of the things you can do if we find that we're in a very tense moment and it's starting to draw us into our minds and we're kind of disconnecting from the world around us, then one of the ways to get us back on board is to use our five senses. Okay.
The QR code is not working.
The QR code is not working. It does work, but what I suggest to you is photograph it and then blow it up a little bit bigger, and then you should get it.
They have it's blurred. That's why they don't work. The phone doesn't manage to read them because the definition is not good enough.
Hold on then. Yeah, I got it. It does work. So I suggest that you just have it on full screen like that, and put your phone right up to the QR code, and you should find that it works. I just did it now with my phone. So one of the things we can do is use our five senses. We'll get it sent out to you, possibly if you've registered your email. We can possibly do that, and then you can have it. Is to use our five senses, and this is a very grounding exercise. So if we find that things are getting a little bit overwhelming, as the word is usually, we can start using our five senses. So if you were doing it with somebody else, you would ask them to do it. But if you're doing it to yourself, basically what you'd be doing is you'd have a look around the room. You can do it with me right now. Again, I do this to myself all the time. You look around the room and you pick out five things that you can see and you name them. Oh, I can see the door, or I can see the wall, or I can see the light, or I can see anything. And you come to five things that you see. And then you will come to, let's say, four things that you can hear, right? So you have a look around, or I can hear the air conditioning, or I can hear a car pass, or I can hear a voice, right? And you use your ears to do that. And then you might have three things that you can feel. So those, I see Rosalind's got glasses. I see Sarah's got glasses. So you didn't feel them on your nose until I mentioned it now. And now you probably feel it on your nose. My little party trick. But the point here is that once we activate those senses, we can actually ground ourselves, and our brain jumps to give attention to that. And that takes us out of our mind and into our present moment. So you look around for things that you can feel. It might be the hair on your neck, it might be your clothes, it might be your bottom on the chair, it might be your feet on the ground, but you pick out a few things that you can actually feel. And then a couple of things maybe that you can smell. So you might, sometimes a bit difficult depending, but you might smell the cooking, or you might smell a coffee, or you might just be able to pick up some perfume and smell that, or something else, hopefully pleasant. And then something that you can taste. Okay, so if you can put something in your mouth and taste it, just to take it very slowly and actually put your attention on what you taste, or just the saliva in your mouth is also very effective. Now, I use all of this that I'm telling you. I use it on myself, but I also use it on trauma victims who might be in a car crash, or might be in a terrorist attack, or it might be in whatever. These are things that are used all the time. They're very, very, very effective. Okay, how are we doing? Yeah, we're all right. So the next thing is vagal breathing. Now, the vagal breathing is extremely important. If there was one that I really want to leave you with, it's this one. Okay. And this is because this one is a neurological, physiological exercise. Okay. Even though it's a breathing exercise, and there's thousands of breathing exercises, this is a scientifically based exercise based on our vagal nerve. Vagal nerve, for anyone, we have millions and billions of internal brain to brain neurons, which are nerves basically. But we only have, quite wondrously actually, only 12 that leave the brain and go into the rest of the body, of all the nerves in our body. It's amazing. And number 10 is an amazing nerve. Number 10 is what's called the vagal nerve. And the vagal nerve is a very, very special nerve. The first thing is that it's a two-way nerve. So it's a dual carriage highway. It takes information from our brain to the rest of our body, and from the body back into the brain again, which is very interesting. But it gets its name from the word vagus, which means wandering. We used to call homeless people vagrants because they used to wander around. That's the same root of the name of this nerve. And the reason for that is nerves generally usually go from A to B. That's a bit of a wire, right, at the end of the day. But this nerve goes from the brain into a number of places, including the facial nerves, the throat, the ears, the heart, the lungs, and right down there into our gut. And if you ever heard the expressions, like your gut's telling you something, that's coming up through the vagal nerve. Okay. Vagal nerve has lots of things to it, but one of the things that we've discovered is that it's an alternative system to the fight and flight system. So the fight and flight system is when there's a threat coming along, it's going to get our body ready to run away or ready to fight. And it's a very expensive system that's going to use a lot of resources. And then it's going to take a lot of resources to kind of shut that down and get back to our regular regulation again. So the vagal nerve can kind of turn that off. So the problem with fight and flight is that it's really important when we've got something to fight or something to flight from in front of us. But when it's happening from inside, that's a problem because we can't run away and we can't fight ourselves. So but the brain doesn't actually distinguish very much. So we're going to get all that response in our body, all that chemical reactions, all that shutting down of our systems when we're just remembering some horrific things that have happened to us or worrying about things that might happen to us in the future. And so our brain will start all that off. When we do this breathing, we're going to tone up this vagal nerve, and this vagal nerve is going to regulate our heart, regulate our breathing, regulate our gut, and basically keep us regulated as best as possible. Now, I do this breathing every single day. I've been doing it now for 12 years. And I can tell you it's got me through a whole bunch of things. I do it whether I'm going through a traumatic thing or not. But whatever it is, it gets me through it. And I do it morning, afternoon, and evening. I suggest at least once a day, but if you can do it 3 times a day, then that's fantastic. I do extra ones when I'm teaching, and I do extra ones if I had a public speaking to do or a business meeting or something that's going to be a little bit kind of anxious producing, then I would do 4 of these breaths, which I'll show you in a minute, before I go into the meeting, and 4 after when I come out. So can't go far wrong. I wouldn't spend more than a minute doing this. It can take 30 seconds. That's enough. So I'm going to show you now, and again, you will get the video too. But I suggest that you follow along with this at the moment, just to get the idea. Put our hand on our tummy. When we breathe in, we're going to push our tummy out, and when we breathe out, we're going to bring our tummy back. When our tummy goes out, the diaphragm drops, allows our lungs to take in a lot more air. When we breathe in through our nose as if we're smelling a nice sweet flower. Breathe in through our nose for the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. We're going to hold it in our lungs for the count of 2. 1, 2. And then we're going to breathe out through our mouth as if we're breathing through a straw. First lips, a little bit of pressure for the count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now you can do it with me. I will do these hand signals, breathing in, holding, breathing out. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3. Hold it in your lungs, 1, 2. Out through your mouth, through the straw, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excellent. I'll do it with you. Breathing in, hold it in your lungs, out through the straw. 2 more. Breathing in. From those lungs, hold it, and slowly out. Really breathe out so you can hear the noise. Breathing in. From the lungs, hold it, and out through the straw, let go. Just let that marinate around. Okay, so again, 3 or 4 of those rounds is 1 set, and I do 1 set in the morning, 1 set in the afternoon, 1 in the evening, and I cannot recommend it more. I've got a friend who's a professor of psycho-oncology. Don't ask me too much what that is, but it's the psychological connection to cancer. And he does research on this and how it can actually prevent that trauma going through our bodies. So it's very effective and very scientifically based. So another one is bilateral stimulation. Bilateral stimulation is based on trauma treatment called EMDR. And basically, when we stimulate either sides of our body or move our eyes, which is the classic version, or have different beats going through our ears, or tapping our knees, this has a processing effect of things that have happened to us in the past that were unpleasant and allows our brain to process it. It does sound a little bit woo-woo here, but it has got evidence behind it, and it's very, very effective. This one is you don't need a therapist to do it. You can do it on yourself. So basically, you cross your hands over to your top of your arms, or some people can cross the thumbs and just have it on our collarbone here. But I like this one because we have lots of nerves endings on the top of our arms, and we kind of get an extra thing here, because even if we just hold ourselves like this, like the self-compassion, we have a biochemical effect. And this biochemical effect is very powerful inside, just like somebody was giving us a hug. right? Without doing anything. Our brain is very interesting. It doesn't know if we're giving ourselves a hug or somebody else is giving us a hug. So it's quite convenient if we're on our own. And yeah, this will cause a biochemical effect. Now, if we want the bilateral stimulation, then we can start tapping the top of our arms like this. Or if you were doing that, you would just tap your collarbone like this. And you would give it about 40 taps and think about something very pleasant, basically. That's all you want to do, something very, very pleasant. And then you stop and just see how your state is at this moment, and how you feel, how you think. Now, you've got to remember, we're really not trying to take anything away, because everything that's we're responding is natural. So if we're feeling frightened, that's natural. If we've got horrible thoughts and worries, that's natural. Everything is natural. So we're not trying to run away from it. We're not trying to distract ourselves from it. We're trying to allow ourselves to be willing to experience it. That's the twist here, okay? So if we can allow ourselves to be willing to experience it, whether we can feel it, whether we allow ourselves to sit here while it's very unpleasant, then lo and behold, we can get through this and we can start doing things that are important to us and showing up in our lives with people that are important to us and doing activities that are important to us. If we try to run away or distract yourself from it, what actually happens? It bounces back with a vengeance. And so this is a scientifically studied thing. And so, I really, really strongly recommend that we allow ourselves to be sit here with those horrible feelings and those horrible body sensations. And it too will pass, because that's the nature of our biology. Our biology won't keep us in those states for very long. When we do find that people are in it for long, it's because they're avoiding that state. They're avoiding the messages that the body and brain is trying to give us. Whether we understand them or not, it doesn't matter here. But when we try to avoid it, when we try to distract ourselves from it, when we try to run away from it, we end up getting more of it. Okay, when we allow ourselves to be with it, we allow ourselves to experience it and understand that it's a natural reaction to something very uncomfortable that we've experienced. And keep in mind that we are now going to go off after we've sat there for a few minutes and do something of importance in our life. We find that we have a higher quality of life, and it just builds and builds and builds from there. Okay, so um, that willingness is what I was talking about. And this is the last one that I'm going to explain, and that's going to be us for today. And that is being able to sit there and just scan our body. So if we're just scanning our body from our head to our feet, or from our feet to our head, doesn't matter which direction, just going through it as if we had some sort of big hula hoop thing going round. Just imagine it going around 360 degrees. And just notice. All we're doing is wanting to notice what's going on. Most of us don't notice. Oh, look, I've got a thing here, or I've got a twinge here, or I've got a pleasant thing here, or a pleasant, or a tingling that I never thought I had before. Whatever it is. And if you've gone through something very unpleasant, there's a likeliness that you're going to notice other things. So let it go down each arm, and go back down here, down to our waist, down past our legs, down to our feet. And all we're doing is noticing it. So again, I suggest that you take a photograph of that QR code, and you'll get a full lesson on how to go through that. And I will ask the organizers to send this out to you, because they've got a copy, and hopefully you should get it anyway. All right. So just before we close up, is there any questions that you would like to ask me? I hope that was useful to you also in the short time that we've got. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, is that a clapping thing? Okay. It's a clapping emoji. Thank you, FOA. Any other questions? Was that useful for you? Maybe put something in the chat how that was. Good, bad, ugly.
Just like San Francisco, I've got the neuroscience background, and I really found it really interesting. So I'm sure once I can access the video, like I'm one of the person who the QR code were not working.
Okay, wonderful. Hopefully you'll get it and pass it on. Please feel free to teach others.
And I
Yeah.
was wondering, when you worked with people, either one-to-one or in a group, probably one-to-one, what if they're so traumatized by whatever the event was that they split themselves from their bodies?
Okay, so yeah, so that's exactly what these grounding exercises would do, like the five things to look around and so on, brings them back into the body. The self-compassion will allow them to start feeling their body. And most of these exercises will bring somebody from their mind back into their body and allow themselves to attach back. So that's what these exercises actually do. Thank you for that question. Any other questions before we close down?
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. The hardest thing I think is getting a hold of yourself. I mean, I remember several weeks where I was just so worried about anti-Semitism and I didn't feel safe. I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't get a hold of myself. I mean, when you're aware that you could do these things, right? Well, but getting a hold of it, getting a hold of your awareness.
Well, now you've had some training. And that's what it all is. I mean, it's quite as simple as that. And it's about practice. The more you practice all these simple things that I've given you now, and I'm in a war situation at the moment. So, thousands of missiles falling around me, working with people who are suffering every day. These are the things that they use. I mean, this is it. So you've got that information now, and if we don't practice it, then we're going to be in a situation where it doesn't help. So you can come to as many of these kind of lectures or lessons or whatever you want to call it, and if you don't practice after it's finished, it's not worth anything really. Okay, so the more we practice, and I'm telling you, I wasn't born knowing this stuff. Okay, so I didn't know this. I discovered it because I was taught it, right? Just like you were taught. And so when we're taught this, and if we take it seriously, believe me, and there's no, I can't don't want to convince you. I want you to do it yourselves. But I have been in many personal situations and public situations where these kind of things can be extremely powerful. Um, and it's not just first aid, you can use it every day of your life. And I recommend you do. Going into a business meeting, going into something, public speaking, you got to have, I don't know, a bar mitzvah speech. It doesn't matter what it is, this stuff will work exactly the same way. All right, that's us. Lawrence, will it help?
Thanks. We had that technique on about the 8th of December when my wife and myself panicked when we saw those rocket alerts that were there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you've got it now, and thank God things are maybe hopefully turning around a little bit in that sense. But anti-Semitism has been around for thousands of years, and unfortunately, probably will still be. So I strongly recommend you take these on board and use them on yourselves and teach others. Stay safe, everybody, and thanks for your time. Bye for now.